Hello and welcome to the Simplified Academy. My name is Elizabeth Pampalone, and I want to share with you how to stay self employed during the apocalypse. Now, I know what you might be thinking, who is this person and what is she going to be able to tell me? Well, I actually am a dog lover, a Travelista stage hog. That's a story for another day. Website stalker, because I love to see people's websites and figure out why they did things the way they did them. I'm an expert marketer, a business guru, and someone you need to know. So, leaving politics at the door, the reason I titled this presentation the way that I did, I want to ask you, do you think the last 10 years has felt like an apocalyptic episode to you? Do you think the next 10 years will feel like an apocalyptic episode? Well, aside from politics, whichever way you think, maybe the last 10 years was horrible, maybe the next 10 years will be horrible, I can tell you that I have survived a lot of stuff, including a recession. And it is something that being a self employed person is very difficult to do, but it's also something that you can achieve. So I want to show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm realizing that my screen is making my face orange and then green because of the images on the screen, but bear with me. So I'm going to show you a couple of things today that's really helped me in my business and helped me stay self-employed during a very difficult time in our economy. The first thing I'm going to show you is diversification. Second, pricing. Then we're going to go into cash flow management, on to contracts, and then into perseverance, which is kind of that inspirational, you can do it thing. All right, so let's get started with diversification. If you're not familiar with that, it means that instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, we want to kind of diversify what you're offering so that you're offering something that not just one thing, but maybe multiple things that your customers would like to and enjoy. Diversification does not mean that you take on more than you can handle. I want you to be able to know yourself and to know what you can actually add to your plate without being overwhelmed. The second thing you do not want to do is to add services that you are only mediocre at performing. You do not want to do that. It is going to hurt your brand and hurt your business overall. So make sure that if you're adding a service that you're going to do, which we'll talk about later, that you can perform it expertly. And if you're adding a service that you cannot do, that you find someone great to do it. So we're going to talk about that soon. It also does not mean that you add services in that as the only way to diversify. There's multiple ways to diversify, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but services is not the only option here. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about is that you do not want to add yourself a second full-time job that is actually masquerading as a fun part-time thing that your clients are going to love because you have these kind of clients. So, for example, you have clients, you're a website designer, let's say, and you have clients that you love wine and they love wine. You maybe had a couple happy hours even, and you get into the wine business. You know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, of course you love wine, and of course they love wine, but does that work with your brand? If it does, great. If it doesn't, think about it. So we do want to do a couple of things. I have a research note up here, which is how have your competitors diversified? And looking at what extra services they offer other than their main, like your guys' main service. So if you're a website designer and you do websites, what do your other competitors do that maybe you're not adding to your service roster, or maybe something that, what kinds of diversification have they done? The first thing I want to talk about is, do the services that you're adding make sense? That's the main thing you have to think about. Is it the same audience? Because that's really, really important, because you have a certain customer base and you have someone you're marketing to, and you don't want to add something that you're going to have to completely market to a different sector for. You want to add something that's going to help your business grow, not necessarily hinder it with more marketing. And then as far as the services that you are going to add, if you add any services, is it something you can do expertly without any extra burden on yourself? Or is it something you can hire out to a subcontractor? Looking into alternative income sources, this is another thing that I would also recommend. Not necessarily the wine business or a skincare business or something like that, but an affiliate marketing system that would work with what you're already doing. So I'm an affiliate for tons of stuff, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. But the reason I'm an affiliate for those things is not because I get a huge kickback from it. I get something from it, but it's enough that it's not going to put a time constraint on me, but it's also I'm marketing to the same people that I'm normally marketing to. So it works perfectly. So affiliate marketing, maybe you create an online course. That's a lot of extra work, but maybe it's going to work for you and your business model. Maybe you author a book. Again, a lot of extra work, maybe some extra money as well. But if it's going to work for what you need for your business and it's going to work with your business model, maybe a little bit of extra time in the beginning may be okay so that you can have that great residual afterwards. And then the third thing would be to hire someone to help you run the day to day. A lot of people thinking that diversification, wouldn't mean that they would hire somebody. But in this case, I'm kind of using diversification and profitability as two things because you're kind of wanting to increase your profitability as well. And so that means maybe there's something you've been saying, no, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to add that service because you think, oh my gosh, it's going to take me so much time and it's going to take me away from the things I want or need to be doing. And so if you can hire someone who is more of like a worker rather than like a designer or whatnot, they can do that job for you and you can add that service without having to add the extra time to your plate. So it frees up your time, you can take on more clients, and you can reduce your menial tasks that you really shouldn't be doing anyway, that someone else could be paid to do. All right, let's move on to pricing. Price, and I'm sure you've heard this, price is not about cost, it's about your value. And there's tons of information on your value proposition and how you value yourself and how you portray that to other people, value pitching and things like that. So if you're not familiar with that, I would definitely take a look at some stuff through Google and things like that. But I do want to just make sure that you know that it's not about cost or about the dollar amount, it's more about your value. So when you're pitching with, your pricing and you're trying to negotiate with someone, you do not want to be the cheapest just to get the job. Maybe you do that in the beginning when you really need the job or you need the experience, but you do not want to be the one that's always doing this for forever. Like once you get to a certain point, you need to stop that. It's really hard, and you need to just take on the quality clients. Overpricing yourself over the market. Tons of people do this. I see they don't have the experience and they price themselves at where someone is, like in my position. I've been doing this for 18 years. And if they price themselves in that market and they say, okay, well, I'm charging $4,000 for a website, and they know that someone with 18 years experience is charging $4,000 for a website, you can get them in a lot of trouble because they can overprice themselves out of the market with not having the right experience, not having the right credentials, or number of years under their belt that they can actually perform the work that they say they're going to do at the level they say they're going to do it. And this can lead to a lot of unsatisfied customers. I fixed too many people's websites and taken on too many projects where this has become a problem, where newbies kind of come in and go, oh yeah, $4,000 for that website, and then they never finish. And it's really, really sad to see that these business owners have kind of been taken advantage of, and they really don't even, there's nothing they can do, So the other thing is, if you're a really good entrepreneur, those are all the bad entrepreneurs. But if you're a really good entrepreneur, you actually undervalue yourself. And when you undervalue yourself, you're actually devaluing the entire industry. And we do not want that. So if you think about it, if I'm saying I can do the job for $100 and you say you can do the job for $50, imagine if someone came along and said, I can do the job for $25. You're thinking to yourself, there's no way that you could do that job for $25. And I'm thinking to myself, there's really not any way you can do that job for less than $100. And if you really thought about it, you'd probably think I was right. And, I might charge $200 for that job because of where I am in business, but $100 would probably be a good price for that job. And so if you could get yourself to realize that you have to get what you're worth, but you also have to make sure you're quoting accurately so that you're not undervaluing a project and then devaluing the industry at the same time. Because that can bite you in the long run and later in your business life. All right. It also does not mean that you overinflate your value, which we kind of talked about a little bit under overpricing yourself out of the market. Thinking that your hourly rate should be the same as someone who is, much, much more experienced. And then working for free because someone is poor. So this happens a lot with churches, ministries, nonprofits. They say, we don't have any money. You feel bad for them. Maybe you really want to help them. And you say, okay, I'll do it for a lot less than I normally would. That's just not a good business practice for you. You really need to make sure that you're sticking to your guns and knowing that churches bring in money. just for the fact that they need a website or they need marketing or they need graphics. They bring in money for those purposes. Yes, their money goes to things that are for that ministry or for that church or for that nonprofit, like feeding children and helping people out. But at the same time, part of that money should come to a marketing standpoint, which is why they're talking to you. And you need to make sure that you're sticking to your guns and not letting those types of I want to say like bleeding heart because they really do play on your emotions. So make sure that they're not playing too much on your emotions, that you give in and give stuff away for free. And then overcharging because someone can afford it. So I see this happening a lot with lawyers, actually. People think that lawyers make tons and tons of money, which in some cases they do, and that's fine. That's what their job is. They went to school for that, they paid for their education. Also, doctors, another one is doctors. They think they have tons and tons and tons of money, and so a job that would normally cost, I don't know, let's say $2,000, they're going to charge $5,000 for because they think, well, they can afford it, and that's just not a good business practice for you to be in because, you're kind of it's not really ethical. But it's also kind of giving you a bad name as far as, well, you did this for free over here and you did this for 5,000 over here, but then everybody else gets a different price. And so even though you may quote things differently, you want to kind of stick to a general price range where people can understand, okay, if I come to this person, I'm going to get, this type of quality for this price range. And it's going to be within a range, 3 to 5,000. Okay, that's great. Or 1,500 to 2,000. But you don't want to be like, 0 over here, 1,000 over there, and then 10,000 over here, unless it's a project that warrants that kind of pricing. Okay, I'm back to orange. In order to get the price you're asking for, you need to have 3 things. And I know you've probably heard this with networking. It does go very much to rapport with someone. And also, if you want to have someone separate themselves from some of their money, which they've worked very hard for and they've earned, you need to have these 3 pieces. And that is they have to know you, they have to like you, and then they have to trust you. And that last piece is really important for people who are separating themselves from their money and giving it to you. They have to trust you enough that you're going to follow through on what you say. Now, I know you're a good business owner and you're probably going to do fine, but you need to make sure that they feel comfortable with these 3 levels before you actually can get into anything where they're actually going to release their money to you. I actually had, let me go back to this real quick. I had a client that actually sat across the table from me. We were in negotiations to get a contract together. And this was the 3rd meeting I had with her. I knew it was going downhill. I didn't know why. There's no indication of why it was going this way. And I sat across the table from her and she just looked at me and she said, I don't know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I thought to myself, I have not done anything to make you not trust me. I don't know where this is coming from. And she told me a story of how her last web designer had basically taken her money and all this stuff and didn't do what they say they were going to do. And I said, I'm really sorry you went through that, but that's not me. And I hope that you'll give me a chance to prove, what I can do and that you'll trust me enough, with your money and your marketing that I can help you. And she looked at me right in the eye and she said, I don't trust you. And that was it. And I said, well, then I don't have anything else to say. If you decide you trust me later on, we can talk about renegotiating and talking about this again. But other than that, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And so for her to just come out and say that, it was very actually freeing for me because I was really lost. I was like, I don't know what I did to this woman to make her so upset. But it wasn't me at all. It was that she didn't trust web designers, and I happen to be a web designer. So they have to know, like, and trust you. And that 3rd piece, we couldn't get there with that one woman. But I do know that you do need to make sure that your client trusts you so that money part is so much easier. All right, so let's move on. What are you really doing for someone? I want you to kind of think about that for a second. I've got some options here for you to kind of pick and choose from. So what are you actually doing for someone? Are you building them a website? Let's say you're a website designer. We'll take that example. Are you taking something off their plate and giving them back hours of their day? Are you helping them with their marketing? Are you being their Mary Poppins of marketing, just kind of magically making it all better? The reason I'm asking this question is because this goes back to value. And while all of these things may be true, there is one that really stands out that is, I would say, the right answer. And that is this one. You are taking something off of their plate. You are giving them back hours of their day. That is not something that everyone can do. You're providing a service that allows them to focus on things that are more important to them than them actually performing this service for themselves. Because everyone knows that you can pretty much DIY anything unless it's like being a doctor. And so in that case, you're really providing something that they can go anywhere and get, but what you're trying to give them is something that they really can't get anywhere else. And that's you taking that off their plate and saying, I'll take care of this for you. You won't have to worry about it. And here's the dollar amount that's going to make that happen. All right, now that you got this dollar amount, we need to talk about your cash flow. So your cash flow is something that's really important. And I find a lot of business owners do not manage this well. I've been guilty of it myself, so I'm not in any different boat. But I've learned over the years that it's much easier to manage when you budget. More orange. And so budget. It's just a huge thing for me that if you are receiving money into your business and you're living off of this money, you need to know how much it costs to actually run your business. So I've gotten my business expenses down to like a couple $100s a month. They've been up as high as up to $2,000 a month. And this includes, your payroll. And this includes, so if you have any employees, if you're paying yourself, if you have subscriptions to things, because as a website designer, I have subscriptions to a ton of stuff. So this includes all of that stuff. And you want to make sure that you are actually, looking at what is going out of your account just as much as you're looking at all the invoices that are coming into your account. So look at what you've got and budget accordingly. Now I'm going to show you a couple of things. I actually use some free services that I love. One of them is Calendly, and I use this so that I can actually schedule people into my calendar without it being a huge hassle and 50 emails going back. It saves me time and it saves me money. Now, I actually use the paid version of Calendly, but it actually is free. You could use the free version just as well. So to start out, I would say use the free version. Manage WP is another one I use, and I use this to help me with my maintenance programs. I actually have an entire video I'm going to be doing on how to use Manage WP and how to structure your maintenance program so that you can actually make some residual income. And then the third one that I use is MailerLite, and this is for my email marketing. It's all automated, and it is a free version up to, I think it's 1,000 users or 1,000 emails or 500 emails, somewhere in there. And when you start out, you don't have that many emails, so it's perfect to get you some email marketing that is inexpensive but has tons of great features. And then I have a resource note at the top, which is Simplified Academy. Obviously, if you are interested in joining, if you're watching this video, and you're not in the academy, this is where this video really lives, is in the academy. And there's so many more videos just like it. The paid services that I use are actually Social Pilot and SiteGround and Square. So let's talk about Social Pilot first. It is actually basically an automation system for social media marketing. And I love it because there's so many great features. One of the features is actually curated content, and it allows me it basically pulls from sources all over the web and gives me categorized articles so that I can go in and just say, okay, I want technology articles. And it gives me Forbes and Inc. and all these different magazines, Business Insider, all that stuff that have to do with technology, Mashable, all that. And I don't have to go on the web looking for them. I just look up the category and I can browse through and add them right into my queue for my social media. I use SiteGround for hosting. They are one of the best. They have a reseller program, which I'm not a part of, but I am an affiliate for them. And I'm also an affiliate for Social Pilot. The reason I'm an affiliate for SiteGround is because every time I do a website, I actually sign up my customer with my affiliate link, and I get a small kickback for that. I do not have to worry about being a reseller. I do not have to worry about the client's account after that. They have full rights to their account. It is a separate account from anything I'm doing. And if they ever decide to not use my maintenance or not work with me anymore, they have their account. It's theirs. They take it and ride off into the sunset. They also have complete access to SiteGround themselves for their chats, their support, and all that stuff. So I really like not being a reseller per se, but I do like being an affiliate so that I can get a little bit of a kickback for promoting SiteGround, but at the same time, I'm not like having to stick with that client forever and ever and ever if they decide they want to leave. And then Square, I do use Square. I am an affiliate for them as well. And this link that's actually associated with this button right here, the actual Square button, you will actually get $1,000 in free processing. The other two have discounts, but this one has $1,000 in free processing, which is amazing. And so what I actually do with this is I use it for all my invoicing, all my recurring invoicing, all of my, I use when people bring me their credit cards and whatnot. So it's a really great option for a mobile, credit card processor. I actually also use it for my payroll. They have great payroll services. And they also have an online store if you ever needed that. So they have an account. They have a scheduler as well, so an appointment scheduler as well, if you needed that. They have tons of great features. It is free. You can use it for free, but they do charge you their fee, 3% or whatever it is for like normal, like everybody, PayPal, whoever does. But you can use it for free, but I do like the paid versions where I use payroll and the invoicing. All right, so let's move to the next thing. And let's talk about contracts, because this is another piece that goes hand in hand with pricing. Once I've quoted somebody, it's time for them to sign the contract. And I think I have the wrong research note on here. Sorry about that. I still have one from the old slide. But yes, you do need a contract. Let's talk about that. I actually will recommend to KISS, which is keep it simple. Silly. So you want to keep it simple. Really, really simple. I actually don't even I try not to use lawyer speak in my contract at all. No therefores and whereases and all that stuff. My lawyer would like me to do that, but I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because a lot of people want to read my contract. My contract is about 7 pages long. It used to be shorter. It used to be longer. I used to have a 26-page contract. That was insane. But what I want to say about it is, even though it's 7 pages, people do read it. And I'm glad they do. I want them to know what we're doing and how it's structured. I don't want them to be blindsided later on when they're saying, oh, I didn't know, and all that stuff. I even have them initial certain points within the contract so that they are sure to read those bits, and those are like the important parts. And you need to know what you want out of the contract, because this is your contract. You're stipulating these terms. No one else is stipulating them. Those are your terms. You can negotiate them if you want. I don't negotiate the terms of my contract. It is what it is. And I have let a ton of bad experiences influence my policies. And by that I mean, when I've had a bad experience with someone, I figure out, how did this go wrong? Why did this go wrong? And was there anything in my contract that didn't protect me in this situation? And so that's really what's informed a lot of my policies going forward. And don't forget your boundaries. Like if you have a boundary of saying, we don't work on the weekends, and if the project does bleed into the weekend for whatever circumstance, then we do charge time and a half or whatever that is. So you need to make sure that that's in your contract. You cannot just go to a client and say, oh, whoops, I forgot to tell you, well, we charge time and a half on the weekends. They're not going to pay it because it's not in the contract. So make sure that everything you want is in the contract. And if they decide they don't like some of the things in the contract and you really want to negotiate with them, then that's up to you as well. And then the third thing I would say is to hire a lawyer. You can trade with them, you can pay for them, but you need to always have a lawyer involved to look over your contract, whether it's just a cursory look just to say, yeah, you're good, or no, you need to change some things, have them write it even, but you always need your contract signed as well. That's another thing you cannot forget. One thing I will say about signing contracts, and I'll probably put a link on this video as well, is that there's actually a program that you can use. It's actually a free program where you could send out for signatures. And this is how I sign all my contracts, is electronically. Then what I do is I'll print them out if I need the hard copy, or I'll just leave them in, and you both get a copy of it through your email as well. So I'll save that email to their folder and have that set aside in case anything goes wrong. I can always point back to the contract. And I have some clauses in my contract that I will be creating like a little ebook about, and those clauses are informed from bad experiences, and I'll put that in the library as well so you guys can have access to it. Okay, let's talk about perseverance. So perseverance, it is something that I have definitely been told I'm very good at. And it's not something that's easy. I mean, a lot of times you think that, I'm going to be annoying people or something. So let's talk about it for a second. This does not mean you're going to be annoying. I've always feared that I would be annoying, but I never actually have been annoying, I don't think. Nobody's ever told me I've been annoying anyway. But it's not something that you're going to be annoying about. You want to have a strategy for that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But if you have a strategy, you won't be annoying. And then some people will just only sell on their follow-ups. So when they go to follow up with someone and say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, they actually will sell in their follow-up. And I don't think it's about that. I actually use my follow-ups in a different way, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment. And then some people don't follow up because they say, well, if they needed me, they would have called. Okay, that is just bogus. That is just ridiculous. First of all, they may have gotten busy. They may not have gotten your email. They may not have gotten your phone call or your text or whatever you sent. They may have completely forgotten and gone, oh my gosh, I totally need to do that. I can't believe I forgot. So I would definitely say that you need to follow up, even though you think that they don't need you. Maybe they really do. And I've actually gotten jobs that way. Okay, we're back to orange. So having a follow-up process. I actually would love to tell you to use a CRM. And the CRM I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to write down real quick, put some CRM links in here for you guys. So the CRM I would recommend would be Dubsado or Honeybook or something like that. Those are great CRMs. They have workflow options, which is really cool. The second thing you can do instead of a CRM is use Evernote alerts. So I use Evernote, and I actually use Evernote alerts so that when I have a phone call with someone or a conversation, I'll put their information in an Evernote, and then I'll put an alert on that note to remind me to follow up with them in a month or in 4 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Whatever the time frame is that is best for me to follow up with them. Sometimes if we don't leave it with a follow-up time frame, then I'll just put it out for 2 weeks. You can also use Google Calendar reminders if that's something that you use a little more often than, let's say, Evernote. But I do try to keep everything in Evernote, so all my client notes are in there. Okay, so it's been a little longer than most of our videos, so I do apologize for that. And I wanted to just kind of give you a more broad overview of this type of subject. This is a talk that I'm going to be giving, I'm giving at the WordCamp Jacksonville in a couple of days. So I wanted to share this with you, and in case that video goes awry. All right, so let's recap. Today we have learned to not put all your eggs in one basket and diversify. So diversify your business services. Knowing your value. And when you're pricing something, know actually the value of it, not just the cost. Having a budget can help you stay on track with your cash flow management. Putting it in writing and getting it signed is important for your contracts, and you need to have a contract. And then having a follow-up process, which we just mentioned. So I'm going to put some notes in here. I'm going to actually give you some links. One's to DocHub, which I mentioned, where you can do online signed contracts. I'm also going to put that ebook in the library for you guys about my contract clauses. And what's the other thing? Oh, yes, CRM links. I've got a couple of CRMs I think you guys might like that might work for you. And we actually have a couple of videos about those as well. We have one that details Little Greenlight and Honeybook, or Dubsado, I believe, actually, Dubsado. So check out those videos, and hopefully they will work out for you. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being a part of the Simplified Academy.